Bringing you the news and information you need from the people making a difference. This is Comcast Newsmakers.
Well, thank you for joining us. Erica Kisch is with us right now, and she is Executive Director of Comcast Community Services, and they help families who are homeless find places to live. Erica, this is a daunting job at times, I would imagine.
Yes, it is. San Francisco is a very expensive place to live for any of us, and families that are low income, poor, without skills, without education, have a really hard time keeping housing, getting housing in the first place.
Okay, all those things you named, poor, all the rest of those things, how can they live in San Francisco?
Well, it's not easy, and sometimes we have to look for housing solutions outside of the city. We help families by getting them to programs where they can increase their education, increase their income. We help them to get on waiting lists for subsidized housing. There are families that are housed that we help who are kind of facing a crisis where they are at risk of losing their housing, and we might be able to come in and provide some services or some funding to help them avoid homelessness in the first place.
All right, let's say there's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they've got 2 children, and they're living in a rented house or rented apartment. And Mr. Smith loses his job, or Mrs. Smith does, and suddenly they find themselves about to go out on the street. What do you do for a family like that?
Well, the good news is in the last couple of years, our services have kind of taken a direction towards more prevention. So, there's a lot of research that shows that being homeless is very traumatic, and it's a very bad thing for children and for adults as well. So if we can avoid it, we might be able to help them by helping to negotiate with their landlord. We might be able to help them with some short-term rental assistance or even a longer-term subsidy while they work towards stabilizing and improving and increasing their income and their skills. Okay,
there has to be a limit to that, though. I
yes.
assume. I mean,
there's always a limit.
You can't just take somebody on and say, we're going to help you for the next 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
The subsidies that we are providing currently, a family has to be able to show that they can become stable and increase their income enough to be able to afford their housing on their own within about a year.
Okay. And counselors do that?
Yeah, we have an amazing staff of very skilled counselors who work with families in all stages of crisis, families that are homeless, families that are at risk of homelessness. And in addition to housing families, we also work with them on other aspects of their lives. We provide child care for very low income and homeless children, which enable their parents to work or to seek work or to get education. We have a transitional housing program for families. We provide parenting services so that families can develop better relationships, improve parenting, improve the developmental outcomes for small children.
Okay. Erica, let me ask you this. You've been with them now. You're executive director now.
Yes.
Did you come in as executive director?
No, I was running our shelter program for 8 years before I became
executive director. What changes have you seen in terms of the families? Is the situation getting worse? Is it getting better?
Oh, in so many ways the situation has gotten worse. When I first came to Compass 13 years ago, it was easy to find an apartment for a family in the Tenderloin. That was kind of a given, and that was, we strived for better for our families. It's been a long time since we've been able to house anyone really in the Tenderloin. The housing is just not available for families, and it used to be that you could find a place in Oakland or somewhere right outside the city, but everything is so expensive, it's just really out of the reach of most of the families we serve.
So in other words, it's getting more and more difficult.
It's more and more difficult.
What you've been doing.
Yes, and the resources are not always there, the services that our families need.
Okay. Do you have suggestions? We're just about out of time, but do you have suggestions that people, well, maybe if you move to, and suggest some place that they can survive, that would be advice. I mean, that would be counseling.
Yeah. There are times when we'll talk with families about relocating, leaving the area. Oftentimes families have ties. They have their own family. They're familiar with San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Place, okay?
Yeah.
Erica, nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Erica Kisch has been our guest, and she's Executive Director of Comcast Community Services. Thank you for joining us.